Breaking Bridget. The Vaxports.
Oh, I've been fired up. This is part of the reason I haven't paid attention to any of the other news, because this is the only thing that I can focus on, because I feel like it's a line in the sand. This idea of a vaccine passport, which, by the way, a year ago was considered something that if you said was a conspiracy. In fact, Sam told us that these were coming, and I believe we laughed at her. It's in our
and
speech.
the UN now has a biometric digital wallet for all of its employees that was announced earlier this week.
Dun, dun, dun.
Agenda 2030.
The United Nations is ready to digitally transform how it deals with identity. Introducing the UN Digital ID. All of your personal, HR, medical, travel, security, payroll, and pension data in the palm of your hand.
Agenda 2030.
They're testing it out on them first before they make it mandatory for everybody else.
Sammy
Agenda
FNF
2030.
went deep down the rabbit hole. I don't think
Look
she's
it up.
ever
We've
coming
lost
back.
ID 2020. You can look it up in our dumpster fires.
And told her that she was just being ridiculous. And here we are again with the tunnels under the Getty and the Vaxport being presented to us.
And who's laughing now?
All of Dumpster Fire is just a record of how Sam's been right all along.
So I am not excited about this, because I don't think that you should need a vaccine passport to travel around your own country domestically, get on planes, go to movies. If the vaccine is working the way that they say it's working, scientifically, there's lots of evidence that it is working, you should just be able to get that vaccine, shut the up about it, don't ask anybody else if they have it, and go on with your life. Who cares if everybody around you has it or not? It really shouldn't matter. And instead, we want to implement some kind of digital system in which you would be tracked anywhere you went, as far as I know. And you would have to put your health information in there. And then if you're somebody who can't get the vaccine for some kind of reason, you'll be given an exemption. But in order to get that exemption, you're going to have to reveal your health information. And call me crazy, but the argument just stops right at the place where I don't trust the government, big tech, and corporations with any more power than they've already been given. That's it. That's where the argument ends for me. I don't trust them. We've given them tons of power. They've taken a lot of power over the lockdowns. And now it kind of feels like they're taking that power that we gave them and they're giving it back to us and saying, oh, we're going to let you do these things that you used to do all the time, but it's going to be conditional.
If you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have. Because otherwise, people are going to go out and enjoy these freedoms anyway.
And a lot of people will argue it's the free markets. No, it's not the free markets. This is the public sector and the private sector collaborating in one of a creepy, duplicitous kind of meeting of the minds where they say, oh, we're going to set the standards here at the government in conjunction with the UN and all of these public organizations, and the government in particular, Joe Biden's administration has come out and said that they're helping and working with these private organizations to set these standards. And then it's going to appear like it's just the private sector who's rolling these out, because businesses want to make sure that they are taking care of their customers. It seems a lot like really just a way for them to get out of liability, because they're probably worried about being sued.
It totally is, because then it turns into the individual then suing the company and the owners or managers of the company than the government. The government's refusing the liability and putting it on the business owner.
Right. But the government, we have no recourse, because in the event that you're basically forcing people to get these vaccines, and people will say it's a choice. Just a choice, Bridget. You can choose to get the vaccine or not. And you can choose to get the Vaxport or not. No, it's not a choice. It's not a choice if I want to fly home and see my family, or go partake in a movie, or go to a museum, or do any of those things that you do when you're a member of society. That's a false choice. It's not true. It's a ridiculous argument. And you're creating two tiers of society: people who are vaccinated and willing to get the Vaxport, and people who are unvaccinated and or vaccinated and unwilling to get the Vaxport, which seems like it would be a terrible idea in general, but more importantly, it will affect people who are vulnerable, disadvantaged, have disabilities, can't get the vaccine, There's a high instance of people who are marginalized, who don't necessarily trust the government for very good reasons, or the healthcare system, also for good reasons, who are vaccine hesitant. There are people who are just vaccine hesitant because, these vaccines, they've only been on the market for like a year and they've only been tested for like 3 months. So I don't really blame anybody for being vaccine hesitant, and I certainly wouldn't force somebody to put this in their body. I just would not put that on anybody. What happened to my body, my choice?
What drives me crazy is it's being conflated with being an anti-vaxxer. That you can be, if you're against the vaccine passport, you're an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
Which is also a false equivalency.
Well, there's all kinds of false equivalencies. There's the false equivalency that you need a yellow card to go travel to places with yellow fever and an immunization card. I'm not talking about international travel. Countries can do whatever they want. They can set the standard for what you need to arrive into a country. That's a completely separate argument. It's not the same as schools either. People say, oh, kids need vaccinations for schools. Yeah, well, adults don't need them to partake in society. These are two completely separate things. Mm-hmm. You don't just get to extend this to everything and everywhere you go. And by the way, you're actually kind of mandating everybody get the vaccine, only you're not doing it honestly. Mm-hmm. It's just a dishonest way of forcing people into getting the vaccine. Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of people who have reasons to be hesitant, and I don't feel like it's my right to tell anybody what they should do with their body. And people will make the argument, oh, it's for the good of society. We need herd immunity. Well, we're getting there. Most people are getting the vaccine. And we don't have any recourse if stuff goes wrong with these vaccines, by the way. We can't sue pharmaceutical companies. It seems insane to me that anybody would be forced to get this. And the way they're doing it is by trying to manufacture consent using social pressure and the free markets, even though it's not the free markets at all. I've been just on fire about this.
Yeah. But also, if Trump said you need a vaccine passport.
Yeah, that's the other part that drives me crazy is it feels like this is another instance of the culture wars where people who would probably be against this if, for example, Trump was somebody who's floating this idea, but people who are saying, oh, everything is racist crowd, where are you right now? This is something that actually could be racist. You're telling me that something that excludes somebody, if you don't have that paper, you don't have your phone, you're going to get kicked out of a restaurant or you're going to get kicked out. You're telling me this won't be used in ways that are not good for populations in our country that we're supposed to be taking care of right now? How does it work if you're homeless? Mm-hmm. And if you have to use this on public transportation? Who's keeping this information? Who's storing it? Where does the information go? All of these companies have been hacked. They've sold our data. The government has knowingly spied on us. There's so many problems with something like this. And people use this argument like, well, what's the big deal? You give up this much information when you're on Twitter or Google. That's the dumbest argument ever. This is my least favorite argument. Just because I've given up by choice, by the way, a certain amount of privacy and information, which I'm not even that comfortable with. And again, it's not a choice. You basically say yes and get to play, or no, you don't get to play in these parts of the internet. But still, it has nothing to do with me being able to go to a baseball game. Just because I've given up these aspects, I'm supposed to now give up my personal health records. So I'm supposed to sacrifice my body to the cause? Big tech corporations? What happened to all the Bernie bros and all the people who were anti-big corporations and anti-big tech? Where are these people? How are they for this? You have been so terrified and scared by the media and the government in the past year that even people who are getting the vaccine are still scared to leave the house. It's like crazy to me. And the amount of fear that's going on in our culture is dangerous because historically governments, corporations, and now big tech don't usually use the collective fear to do anything other than manipulate a population and keep them in control. To me, this feels like social control. I'm going to push back against it while I can, which may not be long. It feels like it's already a foregone conclusion, but it's not yet. And if you hate the idea of a vaccine passport or vaccine certification, which they're trying to rebrand because they're realizing that vaccine passport has a bad connotation, push back against it while you can. There are some states that are just saying, like, get wrecked, big tech, and get out of here.